9. Tottering round young Bingo. I blotted the last page of my manuscript and sank back, feeling more or less of a spent force. After incredible sweat of the old brow, the thing seemed to be in pretty fair shape, and I was just reading it through and debating whether to bung in another paragraph at the end, when there was a tap at the door and Jeeves appeared.
Mrs. Travers, sir, on the telephone.
Oh, I said, preoccupied, don't you know?
Yes, sir. She presents her compliments and would be glad to know what progress you have made with the article which you are writing for her.
Jeeves, can I mention men's knee-length underclothing in a woman's paper?
No, sir.
Then tell her it's finished.
Very good, sir.
And Jeeves, when you're through, come back. I want you to cast your eye over this effort and give it the okay. My Aunt Dahlia, who runs a woman's paper called Milady's Boudoir, had recently backed me into a corner and made me promise to write her a few authoritative words for her husband's and brother's page on what the well-dressed man is wearing. I believe in encouraging aunts when deserving, and as there are many worse eggs than her knocking about the metrop, I had consented blithely. But I give you my honest word that if I had had the foggiest notion of what I was letting myself in for, not even a nephew's devotion would have kept me from giving her the raspberry. A deuce of a job it had been, taxing the physique to the utmost. I don't wonder now that all these author blokes have bald heads and faces like birds who have suffered. Jeeves, I said, when he came back, you don't read a paper called Milady's Boudoir by any chance, do you?
No, sir. The periodical has not come to my notice.
Well, spring sixpence on it next week, because this article will appear in it. Worcester on the well-dressed man, don't you know?
Indeed, sir.
Yes, indeed, Jeeves. I rather extended myself over this little bijou. There's a bit about socks that I think you will like. He took the manuscript, brooded over it, and smiled a gentle, approving smile.
The sock passage is quite in the proper vein, sir, he said.
Well expressed, what?
Extremely, sir.
I watched him narrowly as he read on, and as I was expecting, what you might call the love light suddenly died out of his eyes. I braced myself for an unpleasant scene. Come to the bit about soft silk shirts for evening wear? I asked carelessly.
Yes, sir,
said Jeeves in a low, cold voice, as if he'd been bitten in the leg by a personal friend.
And if I may be pardoned for saying so...
You don't like it?
No, sir, I do not. Soft silk shirts with evening costume are not worn, sir.
Jeeves, I said, looking the blighter diametrically in the centre of the eyeball. They're dashed well going to be. I may as well tell you now that I have ordered a dozen of those shirtings from Peabody and Sims, and it's no good looking like that, because I am jolly well adamant.
If I might...
No, Jeeves, I said, raising my hand, argument is useless. Nobody has a greater respect than I have for your judgment in socks, in ties, and I will go farther, in spats. But when it comes to evening shirts, your nerve seems to fail you. You have no vision. You are prejudiced and reactionary. Hidebound is the word that suggests itself. It may interest you to learn that when I was in the Touquet, the Prince of Wales buzzed into the casino one night with soft silk shirt complete.
His Royal Highness, sir, may permit himself a certain license which in your own case...
No, Jeeves, I said firmly. It's no use. When we Worcesters are adamant, we are, adamant, if you know what I mean.
Very good, sir.
I could see the man was wounded, and of course the whole episode had been extremely jarring and unpleasant. But these things have to be gone through. Is one a serf, or isn't one? That's what it all boils down to. Having made my point, I changed the subject. Well, that's that, I said. We now approach another topic. Do you know any housemaids, Jeeves?
Housemaids, sir?
Come, Jeeves, you know what housemaids are.
Are you requiring a housemaid, sir?
No, but Mr. Little is. I met him at the club a couple of days ago, and he told me that Mrs. Little is offering rich rewards to anybody who will find her one guaranteed to go light on the china.
Indeed, sir?
Yes. The one now in office apparently runs through the objet d'art like a typhoon, simoom, or sirocco. So if you know any...
I know a great many, sir. Some intimately, others mere acquaintances.
Well, start digging round among the old pals. And now the hat, the stick, and other necessaries. I must be getting along and handing in this article. The offices of Milady's boudoir were in one of those rummy streets in the Covent Garden neighbourhood, and I had just got to the door, after wading through a deep top dressing of old cabbages and tomatoes, when who should come out but Mrs. Little. She greeted me with the warmth due to the old family friend, in spite of the fact that I hadn't been round to the house for a goodish while. "Whatever are you doing in these parts, Bertie? I thought you never came east of Leicester Square." "I'd come to deliver an article of sorts which my Aunt Dahlia asked me to write. She edits a species of journal up those stairs, Milady's boudoir." "What a coincidence. I have just promised to write an article for her, too." "Don't you do it," I said earnestly. "You've simply no notion what a ghastly labour—" Oh, but of course, I was forgetting. You're used to it, what?" Silly of me to have talked like that. Young Bingo Little, if you remember, had married the famous female novelist Rosie M. Banks, author of some of the most pronounced and widely read tripe ever put on the market. Naturally, a mere article would be pie for her. "No, I don't think it will give me much trouble," she said. "Your aunt has suggested a most delightful subject." "That's good. By the way, I spoke to my man Jeeves about getting you a housemaid. He knows all the Hummers." "Thank you so much." "Oh, are you doing anything tomorrow night?" "Not a thing." "Then do come and dine with us. Your aunt is coming and hopes to bring your uncle. I am looking forward to meeting him." "Thanks. Delighted." "I mean it, too. The Little household may be weak on housemaids, but it is right there when it comes to cooks. Somewhere or other, some time ago, Bingo's missus managed to dig up a Frenchman of the most extraordinary vim and skill. A most amazing Johnny who dishes a wicked ragout. Old Bingo has put on at least 10 pounds in weight since this fellow Anatole arrived in the home." "At 8, then?" "Right. Thanks ever so much." She popped off, and I went upstairs to hand in my copy, as we boys of the press call it. I found Aunt Dahlia immersed to the gills in papers of all descriptions. I am not much of a lad for my relatives as a general thing, but I have always been very pally with Aunt Dahlia. She married my Uncle Thomas, between ourselves a bit of a squirt, the year Bluebottle won the Cambridgeshire, and they hadn't got halfway down the aisle before I was saying to myself, that woman is much too good for the old bird. Aunt Dahlia is a large, genial soul, the sort you see in dozens on the hunting field. As a matter of fact, until she married Uncle Thomas, she put in most of her time on horseback, but he won't live in the country, so nowadays she expends her energy on this paper of hers. She came to the surface as I entered and flung a cheery book at my head. "Hello, Bertie. I say, you really finished that article? To the last comma. Good boy. My gosh, I'll bet it's rotten." "On the contrary, it is extremely hot stuff, and most of it approved by Jeeves, what's more. The bit about soft silk shirts got in amongst him a trifle, but you can take it from me, Aunt Dahlia, that they are the latest yodel, and will be much seen at first nights and other occasions where society assembles." "Your man Jeeves," said Aunt Dahlia, flinging the article into a basket and skewering a few loose pieces of paper on a sort of meat hook, "is a washout, and you can tell him I said so." "Oh, come," I said. "He may not be sound on shirtings." "I'm not referring to that. As long as a week ago I asked him to get me a cook. He hasn't found one yet." "Great Scott! Is Jeeves a domestic employment agency? Mrs. Little wants him to find her a housemaid. I met her outside. She tells me she is doing something for you." "Yes, thank goodness. I'm relying on it to bump the circulation up a bit. I can't read her stuff myself, but women love it. Her name on the cover will mean a lot, and we need it." "Paper not doing well?" "Well, it's doing all right, really, but it's got to be a slow job building up a circulation." "I suppose so. I can get Tom to see that in his lucid moments," said Aunt Dahlia, skewering a few more papers. "But just at present, the poor fathead has got one of his pessimistic spells. It's entirely due to that mechanic who calls herself a cook. A few more of her alleged dinners, and Tom will refuse to go on paying the printer's bills." "You don't mean that?" "I do mean it. There was what she called a read-a-veau à la financière last night, which made him talk for 3/4 of an hour about good money going to waste and nothing to show for it." I quite understood, and I was dashed sorry for her. My Uncle Thomas is a cove who made a colossal pile of money out in the East, but in doing so put his digestion on the blink. This has made him a tricky proposition to handle. Many a time I've lunched with him and found him perfectly chirpy up to the fish, only to have him turn blue on me well before the cheese. Who was that lad they used to try to make me read at Oxford? Schopenhauer, that's the name. A grouch of the most pronounced description. Well, Uncle Thomas, when his gastric juices have been giving him the elbow, could make Schopenhauer look like Pollyanna. And the worst of it is, from Aunt Dahlia's point of view, that on these occasions he always seems to think he's on the brink of ruin and wants to start to economize. Pretty tough, I said. Well, anyway, he'll get one good dinner tomorrow night at the Little. Can you guarantee that, Bertie? Asked Aunt Dahlia earnestly. I simply daren't risk unleashing him on anything at all wonky. They've got a marvellous cook. I haven't been round there for some time, but unless he's lost his form of 2 months ago, Uncle Thomas is going to have the treat of a lifetime. It'll only make it all the worse for him coming back to our steak incinerator, said Aunt Dahlia, a bit on the Schopenhauer side herself. The little nest where Bingo and his bride had settled themselves was up in St. John's Wood, one of those rather jolly houses with a bit of garden. When I got there on the following night, I found that I was the last to weigh in. Aunt Dahlia was chatting with Rosie in a corner, while Uncle Thomas, standing by the mantelpiece with Bingo, sucked down a cocktail in a frowning, suspicious sort of manner, rather like a chappie having a short snort before dining with the Borgias, as if he was saying to himself that even if this particular cocktail wasn't poisoned, he was bound to cop it later on. Well, I hadn't expected anything in the nature of beaming joie de vivre from Uncle Thomas, so I didn't pay much attention to him. What did surprise me was the extraordinary gloom of young Bingo. You may say what you like against Bingo, but nobody's ever found him a depressing host. Why, many a time in the days of his bachelorhood, I've known him to start throwing bread before the soup course. Yet now he and Uncle Thomas were a pair. He looked haggard and careworn, like a Borgia who suddenly remembered that he's forgotten to shove cyanide in the consommé, and the dinner gong due any moment. And the mystery wasn't helped at all by the one remark he made to me before conversation became general. As he poured out my cocktail, he suddenly bent forward. "Bertie," he whispered in a nasty, feverish manner, "I want to see you. Life and death matter. Be in tomorrow morning." That was all. Immediately after that, the starting gun went, and we toddled down to the festive. And from that moment, I'm bound to say, in the superior interest of the proceedings, he rather faded out of my mind. The good old Anatole, braced presumably by the fact of their being guests, had absolutely surpassed himself. I am not a man who speaks hastily in these matters. I weigh my words, and I say again that Anatole had surpassed himself. It was as good a dinner as I have ever absorbed, and it revived Uncle Thomas like a watered flower. As we sat down, he was saying some things about the government which they wouldn't have cared to hear. With the consommé pâté d'Italie, he said, but what could you expect nowadays? With the paupiette de sole à la princesse, he admitted rather decently that the government couldn't be held responsible for the rotten weather anyway. And shortly after the Canton Aylesbury à la broche, he was practically giving the lads the benefit of his whole-hearted support. And all the time young Bingo looking like an owl with a secret sorrow. Rummy. I thought about it a good deal as I walked home, and I was hoping he wouldn't roll round in his hard-luck story too early in the morning. He had the air of one who intends to charge in at about 6:30. Jeeves was waiting up for me when I got back. "A pleasant dinner, sir," he said. "Magnificent, Jeeves." "I'm glad to hear that, sir. Mr. George Travers rang up on the telephone shortly after you had left. He was extremely desirous that you should join him at Harrogate, sir. He leaves for that town by an early train tomorrow." My Uncle George is a festive old bird who has made a habit for years of doing himself a dash sight too well, with the result that he's always got Harrogate or Buxton hanging over him like the sword of, what's-his-name. And he hates going there alone. "It can't be done," I said. "Uncle George is bad enough in London, and I wasn't going to let myself be cooped up with him in one of these cure places." "He was extremely urgent, sir." "No, Jeeves," I said firmly. "I am always anxious to oblige, but Uncle George, no. I mean to say, what?" "Very good, sir," said Jeeves. It was a pleasure to hear the way he said it. Docile the man was becoming. Absolutely docile. It just showed that I had been right in putting my foot down about those shirts. When Bingo showed up next morning, I had had breakfast and was all ready for him. Jeeves shot him into the presence, and he sat down on the bed.
Good morning, Bertie,
said young Bingo. Good morning, old thing, I replied courteously.
Don't go, Jeeves,
said young Bingo hollowly.
Wait.
Sir?
Remain. Stay. Cluster round. I shall need you.
Very good, sir. Bingo lit a cigarette and frowned bleakly at the wallpaper.
Bertie,
he said,
the most frightful calamity has occurred. Unless something is done, and done right speedily, my social prestige is doomed, my self-respect will be obliterated, my name will be mud, and I shall not dare to show my face in the West End of London again.
My aunt, I cried, deeply impressed.
Exactly,
said young Bingo with a hollow laugh.
You have put it in a nutshell. The whole trouble is due to your blasted aunt.
Which blasted aunt? Specify, old thing. I have so many.
Mrs. Travers, the one who runs that infernal paper.
Oh, no, dash it, old man, I protested. She's the only decent aunt I've got. Jeeves, you will bear me out in this.
Such has always been my impression, I must confess, sir.
Well, get rid of it, then, said young Bingo. The woman is a menace to society, a home wrecker, and a pest. Do you know what she's done? She's got Rosie to write an article for that rag of hers. I know that. Yes, but you don't know what it's about. No, she only told me Aunt Dahlia had given her a splendid idea for the thing.
It's about me.
You?
Yes, me. Me. And do you know what it's called? It's called How I Keep the Love of My Husband Baby.
My what?
Husband baby.
What's a husband baby?
I am apparently,
said young Bingo with much bitterness.
I am also, according to this article, a lot of other things which I have too much sense of decency to repeat, even to an old friend. This beastly composition, in short, is one of those things they call human interest stories. One of those intimate revelations of married life over which the female public loves to gloat. All about Rosie and me, and what she does when I come home cross and so on. I tell you, Bertie, I am still blushing all over at the recollection of something she says in paragraph 2.
What?
I decline to tell you, but you can take it from me that it's the edge. Nobody could be fonder of Rosie than I am, but dear, sensible girl as she is in ordinary life, the moment she gets in front of a dictating machine, she becomes absolutely maudlin. Bertie, that article must not appear. But if it does, I shall have to resign from my clubs, grow a beard, and become a hermit. I shall not be able to face the world. Aren't you pitching it a bit strong, old lad? I said. Jeeves, don't you think he's pitching it a bit strong? Well, sir, I am pitching it feebly, said young Bingo earnestly. You haven't heard the thing. I have. Rosie shoved the cylinder on the dictating machine last night before dinner, and it was grisly to hear the instrument croaking out those awful sentences. If that article appears, I shall be kidded to death by every pal I've got. Bertie, he said, his voice sinking to a hoarse whisper, you have about as much imagination as a warthog, but surely even you can picture to yourself what Jimmy Bowles and Tuppy Rogers, to name only two, will say when they see me referred to in print as half-god, half-prattling, mischievous child. I jolly well could. She doesn't say that, I gasped. She certainly does. And when I tell you that I selected that particular quotation because it's about the only one I can stand hearing spoken, you will realize what I'm up against. I picked at the coverlet. I've been a pal of Bingo's for many years, and we Worcesters stand by our pals. Jeeves, I said, you have heard. Yes, sir. The position is serious. Yes, sir. We must cluster round. Yes, sir. Does anything suggest itself to you? Yes, sir. What? You don't really mean that? Yes, sir. Bingo, I said. The sun is still shining. Something suggests itself to Jeeves. Jeeves, said young Bingo in a quivering voice, if you see me through this fearful crisis, ask of me what you will, even under half my kingdom. The matter, said Jeeves, fits in very nicely, sir, with another mission which was entrusted to me this morning. What do you mean? Mrs. Travers rang me up on the telephone shortly before I brought you your tea, sir, and was most urgent that I should endeavour to persuade Mr. Little's cook to leave Mr. Little's service and join her staff. It appears that Mr. Travers was fascinated by the man's abilities, sir, and talked far into the night of his astonishing gifts.
Young Bingo uttered a frightful cry of agony.
What?
Is that buzzard trying to pinch our cook?
Yes, sir.
After eating our bread and salt, Janet?
I fear, sir, sighed Jeeves, but when it comes to a matter of cooks, ladies have but a rudimentary sense of morality.
Half a second, Bingo, I said, as the fellow seemed about to plunge into something of an oration. How does this fit in with the other thing, Jeeves?
Well, sir, it has been my experience that no lady can ever forgive another lady for taking a really good cook away from her. I am convinced that if I am able to accomplish the mission which Mrs. Travers entrusted to me, an instant breach of cordial relations must inevitably ensue. Mrs. Little will, I feel certain, be so aggrieved with Mrs. Travers that she will decline to contribute to her paper. We shall therefore not only bring happiness to Mr. Travers, but also suppress the article, thus killing two birds with one stone, if I may use the expression, sir.
Certainly you may use the expression, Jeeves, I said cordially, and I may add that in my opinion this is one of your best and ripest.
Yes, but I say, you know,
bleated young Bingo. I mean to say, old Anatole, what I'm driving at is that he's a cook in a million.
You poor chump.
If he wasn't, there would be no point in the scheme.
Yes, but what I mean, I shall miss him, you know. Miss him fearfully.
Good heavens, I cried. Don't tell me that you're thinking of your tummy in a crisis like this. Bingo sighed heavily.
Oh, all right, he said. I suppose it's a case of the surgeon's knife. All right, Jeeves, you may carry on. Yes, carry on, Jeeves. Yes, Jeeves, carry on. I'll look in tomorrow morning and hear what you have to report.
And with bowed head, young Bingo biffed off. He was bright and early next morning. In fact, he turned up at such an indecent hour that Jeeves very properly refused to allow him to break in on my slumber. By the time I was awake and receiving, he and Jeeves had had a heart-to-heart chat in the kitchen, and when Bingo eventually crept into my room, I could see by the look on his face that something had gone wrong.
It's all off, he said, slumping down on the bed.
Off?
Yes, that cook-pinching business. Jeeves tells me he saw Anatole last night, and Anatole refused to leave.
But surely Aunt Dahlia had the sense to offer him more than he was getting with you.
The sky was the limit as far as she was concerned. Nevertheless, he refused to skid. It seems he's in love with our parlour-maid.
But you haven't got a parlour-maid.
We have got a parlour-maid.
I've never seen her.
A sort of bloke who looked like a provincial undertaker waited at table the night before last. That was the local greengrocer, who comes to help out when desired. The parlour-maid's away on her holiday, or was till last night. She returned about 10 minutes before Jeeves made his call, and Anatole, I take it, was in such a state of elation and devotion and what-not, on seeing her again, that the contents of the mint wouldn't have bribed him to part from her.
But look here, Bingo, I said, this is all rot. I see the solution right off. I'm surprised that a bloke of Jeeves's mentality overlooked it. Aunt Dahlia must engage the parlour-maid as well as Anatole. Then they won't be parted.
I thought that too, naturally.
I bet you didn't.
I certainly did. But what's wrong with the scheme? It can't be worked. If your aunt engaged our parlour-maid, she would have to sack her own, wouldn't she?
Well,
if she sacks her parlour-maid, it will mean that the chauffeur will quit. He's in love with her.
With my aunt?
No, with the parlour-maid.
And apparently he's the only chauffeur your uncle has ever found who drives carefully enough for him. I gave it up. I had never imagined before that life below stairs was so frightfully mixed up with what these coves call the sex complex. The personnel of domestic staff seem to pair off like characters in a musical comedy.
Oh, I said.
Well, that being so, we do seem to be more or less stymied.
That article will have to appear after all.
What? No, it won't. Has Jeeves thought of another scheme? No, but I have. Bingo bent forward and patted my knee affectionately.
Look here, Bertie,
he said.
You and I were at school together. You'll admit that.
Yes, but...
And you're a fellow who never lets a pal down. That's well known, isn't it? Yes, but listen, you'll cluster round. Of course you will. As if,
said Bingo with a scornful laugh,
I ever doubted it. You won't let an old school friend down in his hour of need. Not you. Not Bertie Wooster. No, no. Yes, but just one moment. What is this scheme of yours? Bingo massaged my shoulder soothingly. It's something right in your line, Bertie, old man. Something that will come as easy as pie to you. As a matter of fact, you've done very much the same thing before. That time you were telling me about, when you pinched your uncle's memoirs at Easby. I suddenly remembered that, and it gave me the idea. Here, listen. It's all settled, Bertie. Nothing for you to worry about. Nothing whatever. I see now that we made a big mistake in ever trying to tackle this job in Jeeves's silly roundabout way. Much better to charge straight ahead, without any of that finesse and fooling about. And so, yes, but listen, and so, this afternoon, I'm going to take Rosie to a matinee. I shall leave the window of her study open, and when we've got well away, you'll climb in, pinch the cylinder, and pop off again. It's absurdly simple. Yes, but half a second. I know what you're going to say, said Bingo, raising his hand. How are you to find the cylinder? That's what's bothering you, isn't it? Well, it'll be quite easy. Not a chance of a mistake. The thing is in the top left-hand drawer of the desk, and the drawer will be left unlocked, because Rosie's stenographer is to come round at 4 o'clock and type the article. Now listen, Bingo, I said. I'm frightfully sorry for you and all that, but I must firmly draw the line at burglary. But dash it, I'm only asking you to do what you did at Easby. No, you aren't. I was staying at Easby. It was simply a case of having to lift a parcel off the hall table. I hadn't got to break into a house. I'm sorry, but I simply will not break into your beastly house on any consideration whatever. He gazed at me, astonished and hurt. Is this Bertie Wooster speaking? He said in a low voice. Yes, it is. But Bertie, he said gently, we agreed that you were at school with me. I don't care. But school, Bertie. The dear old school. I don't care. I will not. Bertie. I will not. Bertie. No, Bertie. Oh, all right, I said. There, said young Bingo, patting me on the shoulder, spoke the true Bertram Wooster. I don't know if it's ever occurred to you, but of a thoughtful cove, there's something dashed reassuring in all the reports of burglaries you read in the papers. I mean, if you're keen on Great Britain maintaining her prestige and all that. I mean, there can't be much wrong with the morale of a country whose sons go into such a large extent for housebreaking, because you can take it from me that the job requires a nerve of the most cast-iron description. I suppose I was walking up and down in front of that house for half an hour before I could bring myself to dash in at the front gate and slide round to the side where the study window was. And even then I stood for about 10 minutes, cowering against the wall and listening for police whistles. Eventually, however, I braced myself up and got to business. The study was on the ground floor, and the window was nice and large, and what is more, wide open. I got the old knee over the sill, gave a jerk, which took an inch of skin off my ankle, and hopped down into the room. And there I was, if you follow me. I stood for a moment listening. Everything seemed to be all right. I was apparently alone in the world. In fact, I was so much alone that the atmosphere seemed positively creepy. You know how it is on these occasions. There was a clock on the mantelpiece that ticked in a slow, shocked sort of way that was dashed unpleasant. And over the clock, a large portrait stared at me with a good deal of dislike and suspicion. It was a portrait of somebody's grandfather. Whether he was Rose's or Bingo's, I didn't know, but he was certainly a grandfather. In fact, I wouldn't be prepared to swear that he wasn't a great-grandfather. He was a big, stout old buffer in a high collar that seemed to hurt his neck, for he had drawn his chin back a goodish way and was looking down his nose as much as to say, "You made me put this damn thing on." Well, it was only a step to the desk, and nothing between me and it but a brown shaggy rug, so I avoided Grandfather's eye, and summoning up the good old bulldog courage of the Woosters, moved forward and started to navigate the rug. And I had hardly taken a step when the southeast corner of it suddenly detached itself from the rest and sat up with a snuffle. Well, I mean to say, to bear yourself fittingly in the face of an occurrence of this sort, you want to be one of those strong, silent, phlegmatic birds who are ready for anything. This type of bloke, I imagine, would simply have cocked an eye at the rug, said to himself, "Ah, a Pekingese dog, and quite a good one too," and started at once to make cordial overtures to the animal
in order to win its sympathy and moral support. I suppose I must be one of the neurotic younger generation you read about in the papers nowadays, because it was pretty plain within half a second that I wasn't strong and I wasn't